arrived at my hotel at Boston Logan Airport, and before the whole week kicks off and everything that I've actually come here to do, I am going to go and see a really old friend who moved to the US a long time ago. I think the last time I saw her was probably about 12 years ago. It could even be longer. So really looking forward to catching up with her again, and I'm going to capture her response in the lobby. Oh, it might be her. Yes, it is. It is. Morning! I had the most amazing day yesterday getting to catch up with Emma, and we have literally 0 videos because we just spent most of those 8 hours actually catching up with one another on 13 years worth of life and stories. But the trip begins today. I will be in Boston for a couple of days, but the real reason that I'm doing this little mini doc, if you like, is because I am going to Salem. Why am I doing a mini doc, you ask? What is the purpose of that? I did my DNA ancestry kit in December, and in January we found out that my partner was going to be doing a big show in Philadelphia, which is about an hour's flight from Boston. So I said to him, rather than going to Manhattan, which is one of my favorite places, can we maybe go to Boston? Because I really want to go to Salem, and it's only like a 40-minute trip from there. And Salem's not really my partner's thing. It's very much a me place. But I just kind of thought this was the opportunity that I'd been waiting for. And I made it my mission in 2026 that I was going to be coming out regardless. So the fact that this show kind of landed on his desk in January was really uncanny. The second week of January, I got my ancestry DNA results back. And I had a match for a very interesting ancestor. I'm not going to reveal that right now, but it very much relates to Salem, very much relates to 1692. Very weird, very amazing, and can't wait to explore that and let you know who it is. But first, guys, it's off to meet my husband, and we're going to explore Boston for a couple of days. We kicked it off by checking out the Boston Library, which has one of those most famous scenes that you see in tons of movies with those green lamps and everyone just sat there doing their work. It was really surreal to actually be able to be in the room with everybody doing that. I knew it was going to be really cold, so I actually booked for us to do a perfumery masterclass. For those of you that have been here a while will know that I have an addiction to perfume. This was a great opportunity to work with a perfumer at the olfactory to be able to create a custom fragrance for me and my husband that we can then remember Boston by. We got to choose a name, and obviously I picked 1692. We were in Boston for the Super Bowl, so naturally we decided to go out for the night and watch the Super Bowl with everybody else. We were there rooting for the New England Patriots, but we're not going to talk about how that went. Day 2, we decided to start with a breakfast and explore some of the outdoor areas, mainly Boston Common. It was -16 for the last couple of days, and today was no different. It was so cold, but I'm so glad that we braved it because it was absolutely beautiful. By the time we'd finished the long walk, it was time to visit Quincy Market, where we grabbed some food and did some shopping. Boston is honestly the most glorious place. It's probably my new favourite city. It's got so much history, the architecture is beautiful, and amazing food. Like, what more could you want? We then wanted to visit Beacons Hill, where all the beautiful brownstones are. There's some amazing shops here. I managed to grab myself this gorgeous little hairpin. Once we'd done all that, we were honestly just knackered, and it was time to get back to the room and get ready to go to a jazz club for the evening, as it was our last night in Boston. As we headed out into the wilderness on our way to Salem, I couldn't help but take in this stunning view. It was just row after row of New England homes. It really felt like I was being transported somewhere completely of its own time and space. We have just arrived in Salem and we've had a number of really interesting, weird things that have happened as soon as we've got here. We were supposed to be staying at the Merchant, which is probably the second most haunted hotel in the region. And we arrived at the hotel to check in. We've been in 4 hotels, so this is the first one when we've experienced an issue. And they have no record of our booking whatsoever. I've got all the proof, all the confirmation emails, confirmation numbers, proof of payment, and there is absolutely zero record of our booking at that hotel. Super weird. On top of that, even if we wanted to stay at that hotel, they have woken up this morning to broken heating. So they've had to move all of the guests to one of their sister hotels, which is where I am now. So super spooky, really weird. Not had anything like that happen at any of the other bookings that I've done through booking.com as well. Just seems a little bit strange. The second thing that is a little bit weird, we've already been out and started filming some of the locations. And some of our tech is having an issue, which I'm definitely going to have a little look around on Reddit. It's things like our camera. So I would go over to film on my actual video recording and it would just freeze, like literally would not film anything. This happened on my phone and on my partner's phone. It was almost like a bit of a glitch. And microphones as well. I actually went over to Proctor's Ledge already to film that section of this particular piece and my microphones were just disconnecting. It was recording some parts with sound, some parts without sound. Really weird. Again, I did put all of this down to potentially the fact that it's really cold, but it's actually nowhere near as cold as it has been in Boston the last few days. We're about 10 degrees warmer. In fact, today is nearly 12 degrees warmer than it was in Boston a few days ago. As I say, we had no issues filming anything in Boston, no problems with our tech, microphones or anything like that. So, not entirely convinced it's down to the cold weather. I wonder if there's something a little bit more weird and spooky going on. Why am I here? I've given little indications here and there on this journey so far, but essentially the person that I am here to look more into her background, the history of what she went through, and obviously ultimately her murder is Rebecca Nurse, who is a 72-year-old woman who unfortunately was sentenced to death in 1692, along with the others that were convicted of the crime of witchcraft in that era. As I mentioned before, I found out that I am a descendant of Rebecca Nurse's. She is my fourth cousin, 10 times removed, because obviously we're 10 generations down the line now. But yeah, it was an amazing discovery to have that come up on my ancestry. So here I am, and I'm going to go and have a little look around the Witch Museum, go and find out a little bit more about the witch trials, and pick up some things hopefully along there, as well as visiting Proctor's Ledge. I'm also going to visit the memorial. And unfortunately, as much as I would love to take you to the Rebecca Nurse homestead, it is closed for the season. We are majorly out of season at this point. And they won't reopen till spring. So I was a little bit disappointed that I wouldn't be able to go and see her homestead. This is where she would have lived, raised her children with her husband, and it's also speculated that she's buried in an unmarked grave on site as well. So yeah, a little bit disappointing we can't do that, but we can cover everything else as much as possible. We are going to the Witch Museum, which has got lots of information about Rebecca. She features quite heavily within the presentations that they have there, and hopefully I can pick up one of the Descendants packs, which is going to give me an awful lot more background and archival information on Rebecca. I managed to pick up one of these packs from the Witch Museum, which is for all the descendants of the various different people that were killed. Obviously, I've picked up the one that's for Rebecca Nurse, so I'm just going to actually open it and have a little look inside. They are $10 if you want to buy one, but this should have lots of information in relation to Rebecca. In this pack, you'll find information relating to your relative. Each pack contains different levels of information, as we know very little about some individuals and much more about others. Where possible, we include specifics relating to age, birthplace and family. However, for many 17th century individuals, this information is impossible to know with certainty. The primary goal of this project is to provide basic biographical material, resources for further learning, and help point you in the direction of additional genealogical information. So that's the purpose of the museum, putting that together. Obviously, I have done a little bit of research already, so I was already aware that she was born in England, but I actually have more of a geographical location for her. So it was Great Yarmouth, which is interesting because from my DNA test, it did actually pick up on the east coast of England. Obviously, we know that she moved to Salem village and she moved with her family, but she did have a number of children as well. So it will be interesting to be able to look into these people and try and find out which branch Rebecca is actually on, because at the moment I'm unable to determine exactly which side of the family that it is. I'm not going to bore you by going through all of this, but you can see that there's just pages and pages of information. This goes through everything from her life, her birth, her life, her moving to the States, having children, marrying her husband, and then obviously subsequently her death. So there's a lot of information. It also has then related locations. I have mentioned that I can't get over to the Rebecca Nurse homestead. Unfortunately, it is closed for the season, but there are lots of other places that we can visit, so we will be trying to do that today. There's also related readings, and then it does give you places where you can go and find more archival information at the end as well to do with the genealogy. So that will be for me to go and do a little bit of digging and finding out what relation and what pathway she is actually on. So we are here, but it's snowing a lot. It's very, very cold. But this is it. This is where they were all executed. Originally, it was thought that they were executed at the top of Gallows Hill, which is literally at the top here. In the early 2000s, there was somebody who did a lot of research, and they figured out that actually it was more than likely at the bottom of the hill where Proctor's Ledge now stands. But that theory was debunked until some other researchers reopened it, I think around 2016, and they managed to triangulate all of the research that the original dude did, and they managed to finally confirm that this very section down here at the foot of Gallows Hill is actually where they were all executed. So this is the official place, and is why it has been memorialised as Proctor's Ledge. As you can see, there is loads of snow, which has made it borderline impossible to see all of the names. There is one name I am particularly interested in while I'm here, so I am going to try and dig it out, because this is a long way to come, and to not actually see it would be a shame. So I am going to have to dig through the snow to locate this name. As Sarah Good, we've got Elizabeth Howe. My ancestor is somewhere in all of this snow. We've got Susanna Martin, Rebecca Nurse. This is the one. This is the one. Let's dig it all out. July 19th, 1692. Rebecca Nurse. Oh, it's cold. She was originally acquitted of the crime of witchcraft, and obviously we know that all of these people that were murdered were innocent of witchcraft. They were not witches. These were innocent people, and Rebecca was an innocent 72-year-old woman, a pensioner,
who was acquitted, and then unfortunately, subsequently, they decided to murder and hang her anyway in this very spot.
Remember me telling you that there was some really weird stuff that was kicking off around Proctor's Ledge? Well, this is a prime example. I'm having to redo a voiceover because the microphones literally would not work. It just wouldn't connect. It hasn't recorded it on the singular device. I never have experienced issues like this anywhere else. But here we are. I'm just talking about how the area was actually making me feel at this point in time. There was a lot of speculation online that there was a real sense of heaviness when you were at Proctor's Ledge. And actually, I don't know if it was just the freshness of the snow, but it felt very tranquil. And that was really the kind of feeling that I seemed to get. And it's not necessarily what I entirely expected. I then walked you through all the various different names of the 20 people that were executed in the witch trials of 1692. You can see John Proctor there, probably one of the more famous names from the witch trials. Most of them were hung, however, there was one man that was unfortunately pressed to death, which is obviously a gruesome way to go. I'm really glad that I braved the snow and the cold to come to Proctor's Ledge and pay my respects. It was time to get out of the cold, and so we went to go and visit the most haunted hotel in all of Salem, which is, of course, the Hawthorne. We didn't witness anything spooky when we were there, but I did have the most phenomenal food. The town is celebrating its 400-year anniversary since it was founded, and so they've got all these ice sculptures across the city. We did decide to brave it outside for the evening so we could go and get some food, and we decided to go to the Witchside Tavern. It started snowing again, but actually it just really adds to the charm of this amazing town. It's our second to last morning, so naturally we decide to get some breakfast before we head back outside into the freezing cold. So I've come to visit the cemetery, but as you can see, there's literally, I don't even know, is that like a foot of snow? It's a lot of snow. So there's no way we're going to be able to get inside to actually see any of the graves. But it's worth coming anyway. So this is the Charter Street Cemetery. It's one of the most historic cemeteries in the whole of this region, but yeah, as you can see, there's absolutely no way that we're getting in there, so we'll go round now to the Witch Trials Memorial and let's see if we've got any better luck going there. The one thing about Salem is it really is just a beautiful place to wander around, particularly outside of the commercialised aspect. I can imagine it's easy to get into quite a spiritual space. Obviously this is low season, so the streets are very quiet. I can imagine in high season when the streets are really busy, maybe not so much, but the outdoor space, the architecture, the culture generally just make it all worth it. Well, this is the memorial. I've just put up an image of what it should look like normally, but there is loads of snow. I think each one of these plinths that's on here is dedicated to each person. That's why you've got flowers and stuff being left. I'm not sure we'll be able to find any specifically. Might be difficult to do so. I've managed to find Rebecca Nurses and actually managed to uncover it. We've got a couple of token things left by well-wishers here as well, so we'll leave those for paying respects. But yeah, this is it. This will be her memorial spot, hanged July 19, 1692. It was time to check out the commercialised side of Salem, and it was amazing to see how proud residents were of their history, and everything from the police to restaurants, lawyers to ghost tours, everyone wanted to represent their witchy history in their town, and I can support that if it means that they get to keep investment in the city culture and obviously history alive. One of the places we did visit was the Witchboard Museum, which housed hundreds of Ouija boards, literally from across the world, in all shapes, sizes, and designs. It was an amazing thing to see. Obviously, I had to pick up my own witch board, which, what better place to get it from than Salem itself? Obviously, I brought home loads of different trinkets as well from lots of different shops. Very excited to use them in my own practice. Got to see the biggest witch in Salem inside Blackcraft. And honestly, they really have got the best coffee I have ever tasted. It was so good. To round up the day, we went on a little walk past Alison's house from Hocus Pocus on my way to get a very special tattoo. It's the final day and it only made sense to go and visit Jonathan Corwin's house, who was the judge who presided over the trials in 1692. It's the oldest house in the whole of Salem and we can only actually film in certain areas of the house, the lower floor mainly, but we were allowed to take photographs on the top floor, so you'll have my husband to thank for that. I spoke to a couple of the guides while I was there and it was interesting to find out that Jonathan Corwin wasn't necessarily a bad person, and that's probably the misconception that everybody does have about him. He was supposedly a very fair man and he didn't necessarily believe in or was for or against the witch trials. He merely was executing the justice as required for his particular role at that time. Some of the treasures in this house, like that puppet, are nearly 400 years old, which is just incredible that they're in such good condition to this day. Partly why the museum are obviously very protective over what you can and can't do whilst you are in the museum. We've just come out of the witch house and I thought that was the perfect way to end this trip in Salem. This is obviously where Jonathan Corwin, who was the judge and ultimately sentenced those who died in the witch trials to death, it was his house and where he lived with his family. I've just found out actually that they only lived there for about 4 years, which is crazy when you think that this is the longest standing house in the area, is the oldest house in the area, and you would think that actually they lived in it a lot longer than they did. What's more interesting is actually on the bottom floor it felt perfectly fine, but on the top floor I don't know what it was, but it just felt so creepy. My hairs were stood on end the whole time. I spoke to one of the guides there and she insisted that there's nothing really that haunted about it, simply because they didn't live there long enough, but it was definitely really, really creepy. So if you come and have a look, go on the top floor, have a look in the bedrooms and just see if you catch that particular vibe that I did. But this is a perfect way to round this trip up. It's been amazing to obviously come and hear more about my lineage. Ultimately, what we have to remember is that all the people that died in this case were innocent people. They weren't actually witches. Sadly, we have come to the end of the trip here in Salem. It's been phenomenal. I've really, really enjoyed everything about being here. It's a beautiful place. Can officially say I'm a fan of New England in general, having visited a number of different places. But, you know, while it is heavily commercialised, and that's all good fun and it's all in jest and we love that part of it, we do have to remember ultimately that these people were innocent of any of their charges. They were not practicing witches. And it's easy to forget that and get lost in all of the kind of commercialised aspect of the area. Obviously, those of us who elect to call ourselves witches in the modern day era do so through various means. And, you know, some of that is heavily related to feminism. And what's interesting about this journey is that I came probably expecting one thing, that this was maybe more of a solo spiritual connection tied to my ancestry, where I would find out more information about my lineage and just maybe recover a piece of that. But actually that's not what's happened on this trip. What I would say has happened instead is that this is more about a general message of our time. As I left Salem, I couldn't help but receive a message. I came for one thing, an ancestral discovery, a piece of my own story, but I honestly left with quite another. We are fighting a new kind of evil, I think we can all agree. The witch hunts really do live on in every generation since. We rarely learn our lesson, and Rebecca brought me here as a reminder that we still very much live in dark times. We may choose the path of the witch today, a feminist act of reclamation, and in doing so, we challenge others to awaken and use their power for good. I can't help but feel we need it now more than ever before, here in the US, but obviously across the world too. And that power is within us all to ascend and to change that outcome. It's not the message I expected to receive, but it's the one that I needed. And I fear it's the one that we all really needed to hear. Sometimes we are not brought to a place for self, but we are brought to a place for the collective.